Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. And today, I've got a little video about a little trilogy of books. And I intended to do this video about 450 videos ago. When I first started my channel, I read this trilogy of books, and I liked it. And I had intended to make a video about it. And I mentioned this series, and I said I was going to make a video about it, and never did. So I got to thinking, and I was thinking, I really ought to do that video that I said I was going to do a year and a half ago, or whenever the hell that was. So, yeah, here I am, finally doing that video. So the books I'm talking about today are it's the Last Policeman trilogy by Ben H. Winters, which started off with The Last Policeman, continued with Countdown City, and concluded with World of Trouble. And it is a world of trouble in this final volume. So, The Last Policeman trilogy, it's about Detective Hank Palace, almost at the end of the world, because when this book begins, there is an asteroid that is heading towards the Earth, and it's going to hit the Earth in 6 months when this story begins. There's no hope. There's nothing to stop it. It's going to hit in 6 months. And it's going to cause massive destruction. It's going to kill almost everyone on the planet. It's going to wipe out civilization. It's the end of the world. The end of the world is coming in 6 months. And what's interesting about this book is that, and this trilogy, is that it's about a detective. He's promoted to detective because a lot of the detectives have left their jobs, and so they need detectives, and so he was promoted. And he's always wanted to be a detective. He takes it quite seriously. And what's interesting is you've got 6 months until the entire planet is pretty much destroyed. And so everybody is sort of coming to that realization. And it's about the gradual, how civilization gradually falls apart. But it's also a mystery novel. So basically it's a science fiction mystery novel, this first book in the series. And so there is a suicide that he goes to investigate. And he believes that it could be a murder. But no one's really into investigating this or anything else. Because, what's the point? But Detective Palace, he thinks there's a point to this. And so he investigates the murder. As a murder mystery, it's just okay. The mystery itself is nothing that we haven't seen 100 times, basically. It's pretty by the numbers. It's entertaining. But the mystery itself is just, it's okay. It's not bad. But nothing special. But what the book is actually about is what's interesting. And what motivates this guy to do what he's doing. Because one of the things I liked about it is you've got 6 months until the end of the world. You decide, what are you going to do? And this guy does exactly what I would do. He goes to work. That's what I would do. And that's what he does. And why would you do that, right? And that's what this is about. As society at this point in the trilogy is just gradually, getting the idea, and a lot of people still don't believe it. A lot of people won't accept it because that's how people are. But a lot of people know, hey, this is coming. And so in this part of the series, which is basically a murder mystery, that's where they are. The whole series, though, is basically about that, and it's also about Palace's relationship with his sister, Nico, and ultimately that's what the series is about. His troubled relationship with his sister. So it's about a family relationship, basically between these two, the last members of their family. So this starts off here. We've got 6 months. Then we go to Countdown City when things are getting a lot worse. There's 77 days left in Countdown City, and in this one, Palace has lost his job because they've cut the police department, and it's been taken over by the military for whatever time there is left. But he has been hired by an old friend to find her missing husband, who has disappeared. So he's on that case. Why? Because that's what he does. And so that is basically the mystery in this story. But things in society are falling apart a lot more at this point. That is interesting. One of the things that's interesting about this series is that with a lot of science fiction novels and apocalyptic stories, you're there after the apocalypse. You know, everything has already fallen apart. Here you actually see things gradually fall apart. And that's interesting, just seeing how society just kind of crumbles. That's what it's about, really, at this point. And so we have the basic mystery plot, basically a manhunt story. And it's really about society falling apart. In this, his relationship with his sister gets a bit more complicated because she's a believer in conspiracy theory about the end of the world and how she thinks she could save it with this little group of people who also have conspiracy theories, and how he's like, that's just nonsense. And so they have a conflict over that. And by the time we get to the end of the story, the end of the series, we only have 14 days left before the comet hits and wipes out the planet. And it's his sister that has gone missing now. And he's desperate to find his sister before the world ends. And at this point, everything has just completely fallen apart. Society is just completely crumbled. And so he's going through this wasteland, basically, desperately searching for his sister. And while doing that, he finds evidence of a terrible crime at an abandoned police department. Is his sister involved in this? What has happened? And so that's what this is about. This is probably, for me, the weakest book in the series. But in a way, it's the most interesting. This has a good conclusion. One thing I like about this series is that it is kind of uncompromising in that you know how it's going to end. The comet's going to hit and it's all going to be over. And it's how this character deals with that is interesting. And it is interesting. The questions that it asks in this series are interesting questions. Basically, if you were faced with this, how would you respond? If you were in Detective Palace's position, would you do what he does, or would you do something very different? Why is this guy even bothering to do some of the things that he does? I get it. Why he does what he does. Because I'm of a similar mindset, I think. And that's one of the reasons I like this series. But it's also cool from a science fiction standpoint. Just the way this world is falling apart and what actually happens to society. So yeah, I finally made this video. I don't know if anyone will watch it, but there you go. The Last Policeman trilogy. It's interesting. It's an interesting series that is well worth reading if you're interested in science fiction. Like I said, the mystery elements are decent, but they're not going to knock your socks off. But decent. But just because of the questions that it asks, the character work in the series is really good. That stuff is really, really interesting. So yeah, I recommend it, The Last Policeman trilogy. There, I finally did it. Okay, guys, you have a great day.